Welcome, welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Happy to see you all here. Happy to have you all on. My name is Fatima Salman. I am part of the University of Michigan team and with Engaged Detroit, with the Engaged team at the School of Social Work, and also the head of Employment Equity Learning and Action Collaborative. We'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Fueling a Just Mobility Future, Be Informed, Connected, Take Action. So this is our second series of our equity and mobility feature. I know that some of you did join us for the symposium that we had in the summer. This equity-focused initiative was catalyzed by the work of two of our organizations, ELAC, the Employment Equity Learning and Action Collaborative, as well as the Detroit Future City, DFC, under the Global Epicenter of Mobility signature program led by the Detroit Regional Partnership that is designed to create a smart, secure, sustainable, and inclusive advanced mobility industry in Southeast Michigan. Giving you a little bit of background, in 2022 and 2023, ELAC and DFC, along with our national partner PolicyLink, published reports dissecting current conditions in Detroit's jobs and workforce ecosystem. The findings were alarming, pointing to extreme disparities and limited opportunities for Detroiters. The report also put forward recommendations that have potentials to change the status quo. We took these recommendations into consideration, capitalizing on the major investments in advanced mobility that were happening in our region. We decided to concentrate our efforts on equity in the advanced mobility sector. Our focus is on building capacity and opportunity for those Detroiters that are historically left behind and excluded from high-quality jobs and career growth in this sector. I hope this offers some context for all of you, especially for those that were unable to attend our symposium in the summer. Now, we'd like to take a moment to highlight the leaders of our respective organizations and have them say a few words. And I'd like to have Anika Goss and Dr. Trina Shanks, who's the professor and community engagement director from the University of Michigan School of Social Work, and Anika Goss, who is the chief executive officer of Detroit Future City, to say a few words. Anika, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Fatima. I am so excited about the symposium today, the webinar today. This effort, this partnership between the University of Michigan and the School of Social Work. I'm a graduate of the School of Social Work myself, and I'm just thrilled because at the end of the day, our focus at Detroit Future City, and I know my personal focus, is to make sure that Detroiters are accessing fully the new economy as it grows and changes in Detroit and Southeast Michigan. And this effort, this partnership that focuses on research, that focuses on resolving the inequities, particularly of economy and economic development, is going to be key in what all of our future looks like and how we can make sure that we are advancing an inclusive future, especially in advanced technology growth and other economic sectors. Our partnership, so much of this is really connected to our partnership with the Detroit Regional Partnership and the Global Epicenter for Mobility, which was President Biden's Build Back Better initiative. And we are committed to continuing this effort of identifying these inequities, finding ways to resolve them, and making sure that corporate leadership continues their own commitment for an inclusive economy for Southeast Michigan. So thank you so much for the partnership, and I'm looking forward to the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Anika. Trina, Dr. Shanks.
Sorry, I'm running a little late from another meeting. I'm Trina Shanks. I'm the Harold L. Johnson Collegiate Professor at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. I lead the ELAC team, which includes Sonia and Fatima and Ziwe and some of our occasionally interns. I would like to say that it's been great working with Detroit Future City. They've been a wonderful partnership. We've been working together pretty closely over the last year. And I personally am excited about this advanced mobility work because as a collaborative, we want to help facilitate systems level change in Southeast Michigan with a laser focus on equity. We also are committed to staying grounded in worker and community voice and priorities. And often when there's innovation and cutting edge technology, normal residents and low-income communities are often left out, leaving those that are politically connected and economically well off to gain all the benefits, while those that are marginalized bear any cost, even if unintentionally. And so we hope that by being part of this conversation, by staying engaged, we can help shift this dynamic. And so just like Anika, I am excited to participate in today's webinar, continue learning about what's happening in our state and in the nation, and also continue to promote equity and inclusive participation. So with that, I will hand it back over to you, Fatima.
Thank you so much. And I'd also like to introduce you all to our team. We've got a great team, a fantastic team. The nice thing about DFC and ELEC is we all get along really well. And so Dr. Trina Shanks, who just spoke, my partner in crime, Courtney Skywell from DFC, myself, Kimberly Faison has also been a part of this from DFC, Sonia Harb from the U of M team, Sierra McFarlane from the DFC team, Zue Adams, who works with us at Engage, and Savannah Ryan, who is our intern at the School of Social Work Engage team. So thanks to everybody who has been working really hard on this webinar and everything that we do, quite frankly. Let's just do some agenda setting. Basically, we are going to have two portions to this webinar. I know 1 hour is short. We're going to try to do everything all in this 1 hour and get you all out by two, hopefully. Our first portion of this is going to be, we're going to be discussing the current state of equity and mobility. And Justine Johnson is joining us, the Chief Mobility Officer from the state of Michigan. We also have the Mobility Fellows who are joining us and the program managers from the Michigan Mobility Fellows program who are going to lead us in a discussion. Following that, you know, our symposium was about action. We meant it. We believe in it. We wanted to get something done. And so we are going to give you all a follow-up of what's happened ever since our symposium and the work that's happened in these short 3 months and the case studies that, and we're going to present 3 case studies to all of you, ending with a call to action and some closing remarks. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Just a little bit of tech notes for all of you. On your own screens as attendees, you should have a little marker, and you can make the screen bigger and smaller and see the people bigger and smaller if you kind of fiddle around with that. And I hope you enjoy the webinar. And I'm going to pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Courtney.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fatima, and welcome everyone that has taken the time out of your first week back to join us. So I'm going to dive right in. We have an hour. So based on this work, we held an informational and problem-solving symposium in May. Our goal was to bring together diverse players in advanced mobility, workforce development ecosystems. And together we reviewed the data and worked to identify strategies that could address some of the most pressing barriers to equity. To plan this symposium, we formed a symposium advisory committee, which brought together leaders from across the city and state to help hone in on priorities, create content for the event, draw participation, and really allow them to help us bring in all folks from the ecosystem. And Fatima, can you change my slide? Thank you. These advisors were phenomenal and deeply committed to this work. And you can see some of their names right here. And so happy to see a lot of you that decided to join us today. Slide. Our symposium drew over 130 participants, each with different skill sets, knowledge base, and resources to contribute. We also had youth from a workforce development program that joined in on the conversations alongside with the state's chief mobility officer. It was remarkable to see what solutions were generated from so many diverse perspectives, working together to problem solve this difficult challenge that we were really looking to solve from an equity lens. And at the end of our symposium, we really challenged all of our participants to make commitments. We asked them to share what they were willing to do to promote greater equity for those that were or are historically left behind. And right now, you're going to see some of those commitments that were made. Some of them you will actually hear from later today, which have actually launched into pilot projects, and really excited to show that. But then again, as you can see, all of the commitments, people are just really invested in learning and staying informed, challenging biases. And just the case of Justine Johnson, she is someone that has continued to uplift projects, people, voices, employers, service providers, vendors in this mobility space. And her focus is right alongside, aligned with ours, which is on equity. Traditionally, as we know, historically excluded communities are left out of these roles. So we want to ensure, due to the focus on equity, that we are working to make sure that these communities are represented and understand the barriers to entry. And we appreciate the work from the state, especially Justine Johnson, who was our keynote speaker in May. And we're happy that she's joined us again today. And she will give us an update on recent trends and opportunities. And everyone virtually helped me welcome her back. The Chief Mobility Officer and Senior Vice President of the Future Office of Mobility and Electrification in Michigan. And she leads an amazing team that works with the state government, academia, and private industry to improve Michigan's mobility ecosystem. Welcome back, Justine.
Thank you all so much for having me. Really appreciate being here in this virtual space. And I will start off by saying good afternoon to everyone who may be online, and for those who may be in different time zones, good morning or good night. So really happy to be here. Again, my name is Justine Johnson. I serve as Chief Mobility Officer for the state of Michigan. I do have the pleasure of leading the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, and I truly do have a dynamic team that really helps to propel our future forward. So I'm excited to talk about some of our work that we are doing, and we do have a few slides that we'll get through. So I will pause for a second and we can transition to the next slide. We'll keep going from there. Next one. Thank you. So I always like to start with grounding us in our definitions of mobility. And I think some folks may still question, what does that exactly mean? And so as part of our grounding, really just want to make sure folks see this definition of mobility, which is really about utilizing clean energy technologies that enable the movement of people, the movement of goods, the movement of information across land, water, and air. And so this is an all-encompassing term, and really seeing this as an opportunity for us in the state of Michigan. Next slide. In terms of some background about our office, for those of you who may not know, was created in 2020 under the leadership of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Really, the goal of this office is to play a coordinating role across the state. You'll see 4 different state departments that are next to the office, which is really focusing our work on ensuring that we're providing a safe, affordable, reliable transportation ecosystem. And the way we do that is through partnerships with entities like MDOT on all things transportation and infrastructure, Michigan Economic Development Corporation on the economy. You'll see EAGLE here for all things sustainability, and labor and economic opportunity for all things workforce. Next slide, please. As it relates to some of our work and how we essentially think about mobility within our state, we are guided by something called a Michigan Mobility Plan. And this is our future mobility plan that we have here. It was created in October of 2022, and it really has 3 core goals that really help us to do our work. And so first you'll see pillar one, it's about transitioning and growing our mobility industry and workforce. Pillar two, which is really providing safe and greener and more accessible transportation for all. And then pillar three is really leading the world in mobility policy and innovation. And with the support of public and as well as private sector partners, we have accomplished 7 out of 11 strategic goals that have been identified as part of this plan. Next slide, please. So we have a dashboard, and I highly encourage folks to check out our website, michiganbusiness.org/OFME, because transparency is important. And so we want to make sure that people are aware of some of our goals that we have and how we're measuring up to those goals. And I'll just call out a few items, especially in pillar one, and that's transitioning and growing our mobility industry. And so Michigan, we have created over 20,000 new jobs. The goal is to create 20,000 new jobs while increasing also the wages for those who are in the mobility sector. We are almost at 27,000 new jobs. So we have achieved this goal, and that's something we're very proud of. This is really allowing us to continue to advance our work within mobility, but also within the automotive focused sectors within the state. So that's another important part of our work. You'll also see as part of this in terms of increasing the number of mobility credentialed workers by 2030, and that's really about ensuring diversity in the sector, and that's something that's really important. We have added 23,000 workers with mobility credentials, and they are really important to, again, all parts and pieces of the value chain around all things mobility. So this workforce piece is something that is very important in making sure that we have jobs, making sure that people have the tools to succeed in this space as well. I'll also transition to a few other pillars here. We do have a goal for charging infrastructure. So 100,000 charging ports to be put in place by 2030 to support 2 million passenger EVs. As we talk about charging infrastructure, we do need to have an active conversation around the grid and making sure that charging can take place while also still meeting our day-to-day needs for electricity. We have a goal in our plan for at least 80% of charging to take place during the off-peak periods. We are now at 91% of the charging demand goals. And so this is something that, we want to make sure that we continue to see trending upward. And this really does help to reduce any negative or unforeseen impacts to the grid, while also continuing to promote EV adoption. So again, the grid is something that is very important as we think about the rollout of the infrastructure over time. Another thing, just kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing on the policy level is really making sure that we're continuing to be as competitive as possible when it comes to innovative policies and as well as programs. And that does require that we look at our existing programs and policies that we have in place and identifying opportunities where we can be competitive, but also at the same time really allow opportunities for new companies to come here to test their ideas and create programs and initiatives and services that really do help to move people and as well as goods and information more efficiently, effectively, and more equitably. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the fiscal year, which has just started in terms of October, actually October 1st. So a few months ago, we did kick off the top of the fiscal year. And this slide here is about highlighting a few of the initiatives that we have and how we continue to work with public and private sector partners on some of our big goals. Electrification and infrastructure is something that's really important. So you'll see here under the clean fuel and charging infrastructure really is providing grant funding to accelerate the deployment of electric vehicle charging stations and as well as hydrogen fueling infrastructure. There will be a focus as part of fiscal year 2025 and beyond on medium and heavy duty fleets and making sure that public transportation systems and networks continue to be a part of this clean energy transition. Also making sure that those who live in single family or multifamily unit housing actually have opportunities to charge as well. So really thinking about how charging works at the very hyper local level with a number of different diverse community needs. And continuing to build out our fast charging systems that we have in place. We did receive federal funding, and that's $110 million as part of the National Electric Vehicle Funding. And that is allowing us to deploy fast charging along identified alternative fuel corridors around the state. Next, you'll see aerial mobility and drone infrastructure. Something that we're really proud of is the creation of the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform that we have within our office, which really does provide entrepreneurs and innovators with access to grant funding opportunities to test and deploy new solutions in the built environment or, again, within a private test site or closed test site. That's something that really is important to our work. We do have a fund, the Advanced Air Mobility Activation Fund, for companies who are looking to deploy this technology. I'll transition a little bit. You'll see inductive charging. Something I'm really proud of is that we are the first state in the United States to have a public wireless charging roadway. We want to continue to see that type of technology and investment made available to companies who are looking to test this technology, but also understanding how public transit and as well as moving goods can also utilize this particular roadway and beyond. Another thing, there is the Shared Streets and Spaces Grant funding that has been made available, and in partnership with Michigan Department of Transportation, we are really proud that we have issued over 20 grants, really with a focus on equitable deployment and projects that are helping with shared and connected spaces. So that's something that we're really proud of. We, as part of our October Mobility Conference, we did actually announce a $15 million Equitable Mobility Challenge, where we had 6 companies who are focusing on a variety of different topics around the state, providing access to shared mobility at low cost for communities, but also micro-transit options for those who are people with disabilities or those who are older adults. So really taking a lens on who are the users and making sure those users are part of this innovative mobility ecosystem. And then the last image I'll just talk about is the Mobility Hub pilot, and in partnership with Daimler Trucks North America and as well as DTE Energy, we did receive a federal RAISE grant, and that grant is allowing us to, again, focus on medium and heavy duty fleets and building out a true clean energy ecosystem for all of those entities to operate, but also for different companies to test and deploy new technologies and solutions. Next slide, please. So in terms of some areas that are trending, and some folks may say, you know, what are we doing? What's actually trending, not only for the state of Michigan, but across the US, and that is really talking about clean energy, vehicles, and infrastructure. So, you know, we had a very strong quarter for EV sales, and you'll see a number of stats here. These are sourced from the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation of the number of EVs that have been sold by each quarter. So we're continuing to trend. There are a little over 5.4 plug-in hybrid electric and battery electric vehicles sold since 2010. Really seeing reduction of cost when it comes to electric vehicles as a result of battery technology that has been evolving. We're seeing smart and connected mobility being a trend. You're seeing the integration of AI in a lot of the work that we're doing with the deployment of innovative transportation systems that really address flow and safety, but also autonomy is another big piece of this, and mode shift. Literally having a conversation that goes from a single occupancy vehicle to shared systems like e-bikes, cars, and more. So this is something we're really excited about. Next slide. And some of the challenges and opportunities we just want to call out, right? So some of the challenges is ecosystem building. There's so many different parts and players, and sometimes we might be having just a conversation around automotive and missing the bigger and broader picture. So really the opportunity about that is really expanding our definition of mobility. Some of the challenges do include sustainable funding models. And so we see an opportunity of really investing in innovative ecosystems that continue to open the door and revolve funding, but also projects and programs and initiatives. Our infrastructure is getting older. And so the opportunity is, how might we start to future-proof our infrastructure to lay innovative mobility? So we think of a road like a smart road, and all of the different data points that now can be collected from infrastructure. You think about the workforce and making sure that our workforce is ready. So the opportunity area is making sure that our workforce has the skills and the tools to be a part of this mobility ecosystem. Regulation is a big piece, and different states have different viewpoints on all things regulations for autonomy. And really, we're seeing the opportunity areas being about more standardization around regulation. So these are just a quick snapshot of some of the opportunities and the challenges that we face. But again, how our office is really leaning into the opportunities as part of our ecosystem building within the state. Next slide. And that being said, I just want to say, one, I always leave every presentation with this, right? Collaboration is really paramount to our success and is really key to how we can work together. This is really a time where we have to lean in. We have to understand our collective strengths and move forward together, removing the silos, but really being intentional about how our state is going to lead not only within the Midwest region, but also globally, especially with all of the different opportunities around mobility innovation. So that being said, I just wanted to say thank you very much, and I will turn it over to the fellows team who will provide some more comments.
Thank you, Justine. Appreciate all your comments. Appreciate you being here. And we appreciate all the work that you've been doing with us also, and keeping everything equity focused. It's an important piece to that we strive for, and we're grateful that you also are thinking the same as we are. So as Justine said, what we're going to be doing next is at our May symposium, Justine actually had given us a glimpse already of our Michigan Mobility Fellowship. Ever since then, in October, that groundbreaking initiative did launch, and we are really excited to have two of the Michigan Mobility Fellows with us today, Dimitri Kalstas and Yannicka Tinsley, as well as the MMF program managers, Melvin Henley and Latina Black. And I am going to ask them all to open up their video and unmute themselves. And I see all of you except Yannicka. I don't see Yannicka yet. And I am also going to, oh, there you are, Yannicka. And I'm also going to stop sharing so that we can get a full view of their discussion that they're going to have. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Melvin and Latina. Please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all today and continue the conversation. And thanks to Fatima and the rest of the team for having making some space for the My Mobility Fellows program to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing, but then also more importantly and more excitedly to hear from some of the fellows themselves. So as was said, my name is Melvin Henley. I am one of the program leads for the My Mobility Fellows program. You're also hear from my co-collaborator in all of this work, Latina Black, who will share some overview and background on the approach for cohort 1 for the program, and then you will hear from some of the My Mobility Fellows themselves. So that's how we're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so. We're really, again, thankful for the opportunity and to share a little bit about our work with you all. You will see our contact information on the screen, so if we don't cover everything, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always available via email, and we do have a website, which will be shared in the links that you can go and request further information or to sign up for our sign-up list or interest forms, etc. Before I turn it over to Latina, just wanted to give some background and context for the My Mobility Fellows program. You also may hear it referred to as MMF. It's one and the same. And so the Michigan Mobility Fellows program is a talent and retention initiative that was co-created by the state of Michigan's OFME office, which you heard from Justine represented, as well as Michigan Central. And that is done in partnership with CEDAM, which is the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, and Wayne State University. And the program is focused on advancing mobility innovation and addressing transportation and mobility challenges across the state. I will say we did do our very best to shorten all of that. Unfortunately, none of it did flow, and we did try to find organizations with shorter names, but again, none of that worked out in the way that we hoped. But one of the things that we wanted that you'll hear is that from the 4 unique partners that we have, we did take a collaborative approach to launching the fellowship. And we realized that all of the partners that we do have, that they bring to the table both local and state perspectives as it relates to the mobility and transportation ecosystem. So we're really excited to have the 4 folks that involved that we do, because we know that they bring different perspective, different interests, different expertise, different connections to the table. And we wanted to make sure that all of them are leveraged throughout this partnership. And it's been so far so good, and we're really thankful for that. And so what we were hoping to do in this, through the program is build capacity, both again here and across the state. You will hear that. Although this is a Metro Detroit focused conversation, the work of the program is statewide, and we're really excited to have that geographical coverage, because we realize that mobility and transportation is something that impacts all of us as Michiganders throughout the state. So why are we so excited about this program? This is the first of its kind in the state of Michigan, a fellowship program that's aimed at mobility and transportation. So the fact that this is the first of its kind, we're really excited about this opportunity. You can read more about that on our website. But some of the things that we are proud of is that it is the first of its kind opportunity that's paying competitive wages to emerging talent. We do provide benefits. They get access to professional and leadership opportunities. They get to attend a number of key events and be a part of conversations that maybe they wouldn't have had access to outside of that. And then they have conversations with industry leaders across the state. So we're really excited to have all of that be something that people who are, in their early 20s at various stages in the beginning part of their career, to have this be an option for them. And so if you are interested to be a part of that conversation or hear what we're doing, please feel free to reach out. And then lastly, one of the opportunities for why this program was launched, and one of the reasons why that all of our partners are at this table, is that we were all in agreement about the opportunity. So being able to be in agreement about retaining and attracting and embracing local talent here in this throughout the state of Michigan, being able to understand that the landscape is changing when it comes to local and global competition for jobs. So how can we make sure that folks who have access, or so who are either located in the state or moving to the state, are well prepared to take on that competition for jobs? But also realizing we're in the midst of a transitioning workforce, for transitioning from traditional ICE skill sets to one that now is inclusive of new and emerging tech. And then lastly, one that's really important to this program is being able to target, understand, talk about, and be able to come up with creative solutions when it comes to targeting transportation and mobility barriers, but then also working towards equity in those spaces. So those are all key components of the program and key things that we'd like to address as we move throughout the MMF program and look towards the future. And now I'll turn it over to Latina to talk about our cohort 1 before we get to hear from Dimitri and Yannicka. Latina?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Latina Black. I am one of the program leads for the Michigan Mobility Fellows, particularly leading the Mobility Times Society Innovators Tracks on behalf of Michigan Central. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us. As Melvin mentioned, this is the inaugural cohort for the Michigan Mobility Fellows. It was launched just in October of this year. We had the privilege of welcoming all 10 of our fellows to orientation, a 3-day orientation hosted at Michigan Central New Lab Detroit. The program will span 15 months. It ends in December of 2025. And we have 2 tracks that the fellows are following. One of the tracks being a mobility and transportation track, which focuses on placing the fellow in roles at a transit or economic development agency across the state of Michigan, or a mobility, innovation, and tech track, which is the Mobility Time Society Innovators track, where fellows are placed full-time with a new lab founder or startup. So for the fellowship programming, as Melvin mentioned earlier, the fellows will be brought in from month to month to engage in ecosystem building, immersed in understanding exactly what mobility in Michigan is about with industry leaders, and essentially giving them an opportunity to raise their awareness about the ecosystem and give them the opportunity to glean from one another and the work that they do. Our ability to land the amazing talent that we did with this inaugural cohort of fellows is due to our outreach strategy. We were really intentional, while being really intentional about attracting talent to and retaining talent in Michigan within the mobility landscape. We wanted to create an opportunity that provided increased access to post-secondary opportunities here in Michigan that weren't otherwise available. We know that traditionally our top talent here in Michigan is lost to regions like Boston and New Mexico, to the West Coast. So we were very intentional, not only in how do we create a program that is attractive to our recent grads, but also how do we reflect the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion within the mobility landscape here in Michigan. And the numbers speak for themselves. So we received over 75 applications that represented post-secondary talent from all disciplines and demographics across the country and internationally, as far as Nepal. Even more with that, when we look at the cohort makeup of the 10 fellows, 44% of our fellows are Michigan natives. Two are recent graduates of, two are new to the state of Michigan, and 33.3% represents the BIPOC population, and 44% represent women in mobility. So we were really intentional with achieving some of these goals. We definitely have some lessons learned and some takeaways that we'll be integrating into our next recruitment and outreach cycle, which you can look forward to cohort 2 being launched in early 2026, late 2025, early 2026. But without further ado, because I could go on for a very long time, without further ado, I do want to introduce our fellows. We have the privilege of having one fellow from each of our tracks. So Yannicka Tinsley and Dimitri Kalsis. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves before we get into our questions. So we'll kick it off with Yannicka. Yannicka, if you could share your full name, school that you graduated from, when you graduated, and who your host site is and what your role is with that host site.
Sure. Thank you, Latina and Melvin. So my name is Yannicka Tinsley. I am a recent graduate from Central Michigan University. I finished my undergrad studies in August of 2023. I am also an urban planning graduate student at Wayne State University. My host site is the City of Detroit, Office of Mobility Innovations, and I am working on the US DOT grant-funded Detroit Smart Modes project here with my office.
And Dimitri?
Hi, my name is Dimitri Kalsis. I am a recent graduate of Northern Michigan University up in the UP from May of 2023. I am currently on the Society and Innovator track with Strut Motors, which is a low-speed vehicle startup. And I'm excited as a mechanical engineer to really, tap into new innovations and new ways to make transportation easier and more attainable for people around Michigan.
So thank you both, Yannicka and Dimitri. So Melvin and I are going to tag team on some questions that we like to ask of you all, and I'll kick it off with the first question. I want to give you all the opportunity to really introduce who we really are to our friends here on the call and the webinar. So each of you spend a little bit of time telling us a little bit about yourself and why you care about advancing mobility in the state of Michigan.
I can go first. All right, so my career in mobility is actually just starting, and I am extremely passionate about the residents in the city of Detroit, specifically minorities who need access to more mobility options, as well as economic development. That is also another passion of mine, which is something I am specializing in. But my goal in this fellowship and as I start my career is really to learn something new every day and to become even more committed than I already am just by gaining the experiences that I already have, balancing my fellowship and my studies and understanding the mobility industry so that I am able to contribute to the growth of not only Detroit, but our region and also the state of Michigan. Part of the reason why I am so passionate is because I am a lifelong Detroiter. I have had my own experiences growing up here without a universal yellow bus school system and just growing up um, managing the different transportation options that we do have, particularly related to like access to jobs and education and training and all the things that that does impact. So it is really important to me that as we move towards the future, we do keep it accessible for everyone of all abilities, affordable for everyone of all incomes, and also that we use green technologies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dimitri?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I'm new to the mobility sector, but it comes out of our own personal experience with how equitable the transportation system is nowadays. Um, I know I was owning a car for the past how many 4 or 5 years that was older than me. So running into these problems, running into these barriers to mobility really set me towards mobility as a engineer. I want to problem solve. So that's what really motivated me and seeing other people my age when we want a new car, but it's tough to afford it when, the average Gen Z salary is only 40,000, new cars average 48,000. So seeing this as a transportation barrier and trying to go after it and solve it so that we have the choice to either use public transportation or different options is why why this very much was interesting to me. And that sort of set my track for looking at this opportunity.
Nothing like talking to a young person to be reminded how old you are. So thank you for that, Dimitri. So we're like coming up on time. And so we're gonna ask one final question and I hope you can fold a couple of things into it. So with this fellowship program, it is a 15-month opportunity. So you'll be wrapping up in December of 2025. And thinking about the different conversations, the other learning opportunities, your impact that you're gonna have. What do you hope will be different this time next year? Especially from an equity or an inclusion perspective. And Dimitri, we can start from you, and then maybe Yannicka, you can close this out before we go back to Fatima.
Yeah, the two things that came straight to my head was healthier and happier. My job here and my main goal is to help people around the state of Michigan become healthier, happier, less stressed financially, and having that equality that is so well needed and deserved for the people across Michigan. And from that, I just hope that I have an impact for more people than I can actually meet to really get that and that just to have my goal be achieved.
I would say safer streets. Those are the two words that come to mind for me. I would like to leave the Office of Mobility Innovations knowing that I had a hand in helping the streets of Detroit become a lot safer, which to me equals longer life expectancies and a lot more people that are able to achieve their goals. And because we are working on the Detroit Smart Modes project, I do believe that that is a goal that is attainable. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you both. We're really excited and invite folks to follow along on you all's journey over the next 14 months or so now, hear about their impacts. And if you are interested in connecting and learning more, please visit the website where you can sign up if you're interested, or if you would like for MMF to figure out a way that we can pull whatever information or stuff that you are working on into the conversation, feel free to reach out to myself or Latina, and we'll be happy to fold that in as well. Fatima, we'll turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Well, actually, I wanted Justine just to give a quick little bit on both these amazing fellows. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Justine.
thank you so much. And we're so proud of our fellowship program and all of the partners who've come together to make this possible. This was our first year ever launching a mobility fellowship where we have attracted young bright minds from across the state of Michigan, but also beyond that in the US, who have come here and are committed to working on transportation projects with a transportation organization or an economic development organization. So I think that's something that's really important, of making sure we're talking about public transit and as well as shared mobility, but also working with our innovators and really increasing their capacity by having someone who is dedicated to learning and also to being a part of this mobility future. So I'm so proud that, again, I previewed this in the summertime that we were going to be launching this initiative in partnership with Michigan Central and with CEDAM and TechTown and so many others, and Wayne State University. And as I I left my last conversation of really, this is collaboration at its best. And we're so invested in these young folks who are doing dynamic work, and I think the best is yet to come. And I'm very excited for each of these 10 fellows who are part of our initial cohort 1, and we'll look forward to seeing more cohorts sprinkled throughout the state, of having these bright minds and bright lights all throughout. So they are really driving our future forward, and we say thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Justine, mobility leaders and fellows. And I don't know if you all can see, but the clapping and the audience is definitely reacting and responding. So they enjoy that. So thank you so much. All right, so I hate to switch gears, but it's time and we are like running up on time, but we're going to shift gears and talk about some of the action projects that have happened since our symposium. The journey mapping activity resulted in identifying strategies to address some of the most pressing barriers to employment in the advanced mobility sector. These strategies were informed by the collective wisdom of best thinking and all of those that were in the room. And what we learned is they can be used by workforce development agencies, training providers, employers, and policymakers to improve their work, hiring practices, and impact. So I have the pleasure of introducing Vanya Ruiz, who is the Youth Workforce Development Director at Urban Neighborhood Initiatives, and she's going to talk to you about what they're working on. Take it away, Vanya.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. UNI, for some of you, are Urban Neighborhood Initiatives. We're a place-based community development organization in Southwest Detroit. And our work is focused around 4 key areas: education, community leadership, land use, and a vibrant economy. So today I'm going to talk about this project that came off from the symposium. And we've been working in partnership with ELAC and with some of our other community organization partners, including SDBA, or Southwest Detroit Business Association. Really, this project is to increase the representation of low-income Detroiters and quality of life careers in the advanced mobility sector. So we gathered partners, apologies for that. We gathered some partners, and all partners involved in this initiative are committed to challenging the status quo and creating opportunities for those who have been historically excluded from these opportunities. So we started by finding a common, developing some common ground, shared vision, and identifying some of the barriers for full participation, and thinking together of strategies that are necessary to promote exposure to careers in advanced mobility, job readiness, and employment of low-income residents in Detroit. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the challenge that we're trying to address is the low representation of Detroiters, and doing this through addressing some of these barriers: lack of access to childcare and transportation, to access jobs or training opportunities, insufficient skills and credentials for sustained employment or entering the workforce in this industry, limited structured career exploration opportunities for youth in this new emerging industry, and limited opportunities to enhance alignment between school curricula and emerging career pathways in advanced mobility. Our next slide. So what we thought of a proposed solution, or how we would approach this challenge, is through a collaborative approach, as Justine mentioned, to build a network of partners who will help to guide and design the implementation of this pilot program. This is part of our steering committee, who meets monthly and helps us think and design of design and guide the implementation of this pilot program. Our approach is to identify and address those barriers, as I mentioned, and streamlining access to existing resources and workforce development programs in the city by developing a resource or asset map so that the information is being communicated to the people who need access to that information. Strengthen curriculum alignment with advanced mobility career requirements by working across industries, by involving, again, collaborative approach, including educational partners, industry experts, other workforce development organizations, in order to help align curriculum and develop and mentorship programs to create industry-aligned learning experiences. And the other goal of our solution is to facilitate entry of Detroiters into training programs and entry-level jobs by increasing the interest in advanced mobility careers through more information, dissemination, and tools, creating career pathway maps, highlighting on-ramps for residents with diverse educational backgrounds, skill sets, experiences, and competencies. So really allowing residents to participate in training programs that provide stackable certifications for upskilling, and therefore making it easier to enter and be successful in the advanced mobility industry. And launching a pilot in Southwest Detroit that later can be replicated. The framework could be replicated across the city. And so our next slide. Yep, future goals and next steps. I'm not going to read through all of them because I know we're short on time, but really our goals or our next steps is to build this pipeline. So we're starting with how do we electrify a bike shop in Southwest Detroit that is run by young people to start building some of those competencies and skill sets that they will need to enter more advanced trainings that will lead to advanced mobility jobs. And so we need support from funders, right, to help us fund some of these, the program components. We need support from industry experts, educational partners, to be part of the steering committee and help us think through how do we make sure that we build a pipeline that is accessible at a neighborhood level, with starting with young people through like a apprenticeship models, and potentially stackable credentials that would lead to quality of life jobs in the advanced mobility. So again, the ultimate goal is to increase low income representation in the advanced mobility workforce, with a significant number through this pilot of Southwest Detroit residents working in quality of life jobs within the growing sector. So if you're interested in joining, if any of what I said sounds of interest to you, please reach out to me. I would love to have a one-on-one or invite you to our next steering committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanya. And in the interest of time, we're going to keep on moving along. For everybody who might have to leave exactly at the 2-minute mark, just so you know, this webinar is being recorded and everybody will be getting the recordings. I am going to pass it over to Ramon Pro from TAP K-12 Foundation, and it's all yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I want to go to the next slide so we can keep it moving. So TAP 12 is one of the, we understand that the workforce issue is a pipeline, it's a supply line issue, and we know that students are trying to, and companies are looking for talent. But what we are finding out is the talent is unaware of the opportunity. So TAP 12's position is to be a disruptor in the aviation and aerospace industry by reaching back and providing exposure, engagement, educate, and preparing the next generation for those post-secondary education opportunities, those stackable credentials, and at the end of the day, it has to end up in a job, in a career. And one of the key foundations, which I see the common theme, is equity. The reason that the aerospace industry is in the position it is because of lack of equity. And that's something that we want to look at and address by focusing on underserved and underrepresented communities. The aerospace industry is over 90% white male. So equity is one of the key functions that needs to be employed in this industry to address the shortage that this industry is addressing. Next slide. And this slide shows just some of the growth of the industry. We look at drones, technology, and drone education is a credentialing opportunity for students starting at the 11th grade and being 16 years old. We feel that if you can get your Part 107 drone certification, that's a gateway to a bunch of other technical fields, whether you go into aviation or whether you stay in aviation. That is the gateway because you're going to learn so many other things, but we don't just focus on the technical piece. We also look at how do you create a 360-degree student? And that's something I show you on the next slide, but this is showing you how big the industry is. It's by 2025, there's over 100,000 jobs alone just in drone technology, and it's growing by 2033 to a $160 billion industry, and that's just an estimate. With all the new entrants coming into the aerospace industry, and we're talking about advanced mobility, but advanced air mobility, which is commonly known as AAM, is going to proliferate at such huge numbers because we're training students for yesterday's jobs. And then now this new technology is going to open up a whole new opportunity. And our whole goal is not just to educate, but if you're educating someone, we want to make sure that it lands you into a career that changes your economic and life trajectory for generations to come. And that's what aviation can do. Next slide. So our primary goal is to start at 11th and go to 12th grade and work our way all the way back. And what I was saying by a 360-degree student is we're going to look at your technical, work on your technical skills, those life and practical skills, and then not place you, but prepare you for a career in the industry. Because one of the surveys that when we were talking to industry, one of the major issues that industry has is those soft skills, conflict resolution, being on time, being able to work in teams. You can have all the academics, but you also need to have all those other critical thinking skills that makes you very viable in the industry. And aerospace is such a safety related and highly regulated industry. You have to have not just technical, but you got to have those critical thinking skills as well. And next slide. So here's what we're working on right now. We're working on with Wayne State to launch in 25-26 school year, an a drone program with the College of Engineering. Also, have partnered with Washtenaul's 9 ISDs which has roughly 45,000 students. And we're gonna launch a drone program, and we're gonna work this all the way back to K to make sure that the pipeline is preparing the student for all the opportunities. Because what we know is that some students are prepared but don't know about the opportunity. Some students are know about the opportunity but not prepared, and some students not prepared either way, don't know about it or prepared. So our goal is to help the student and prepare the student so when they come through the program, they'll be successful no matter what career pathway they go in. The standards don't change, but we strengthen the student to jump over the bar. And that's our goal. And I know we're rushing, but I won't go through the rest of the slide, but this will be presented to the rest of the group. And I know we're running out of time. So thank you for the time to be able to talk to everybody about what TAP 12 is doing. And here's our ask.
Thank you so much, Ramon. We're so happy that we were able to feature you on this webinar. This is just almost like a small sneak peek, and we are going to be sending everybody's contact information out so that there hopefully will be synapses and connections and collaboration that happens with folks on this call afterwards. So thank you so much, Ramon. Appreciate you so much. And Marvin and Sierra McFarlane, Marvin Figaro and Sierra McFarlane are up next, and they're going to be talking about their pilot project. A note to all attendees, we will probably be going on for about another 6 minutes. I understand people probably have 2 o'clocks that they need to get to. This webinar is recorded and will be sent out to everybody.
Good afternoon. Sierra McFarlane from Detroit Future City, Program Manager for Economic Inclusion.
Hi, everyone. Marvin Figueroa from Kelly Services, and I lead our Equity at Work initiative for the organization.
Next slide, please.
So just really quickly, because I know we're pressed for time, I'm going to give you the 30-second elevator pitch. Kelly, for those who don't know, is a global workforce solutions provider. Within our client portfolios, we have, companies that represent Fortune 100, Fortune 500, large global organizations, as well as mid-sized and small organizations. And the common theme that we found, regardless of discipline, regardless of industry size of the organization, is that everyone is struggling for talent, right? They're trying to get talent through the door. The struggle is typically, one that we've heard over time, and it ebbs and flows, right? Depending on what events are happening, what economic cycle we're in. You see that pendulum swing between being an employer's market versus, a candidate's market. The other challenge that they have is retaining talent, particularly talent that's diverse in nature, representing all the dimensions of diversity, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, regardless of what a dimension is. There's a challenge in retaining that talent as well. On the flip side of that, when we kind of evaluate the talent landscape, there are quite a few underrepresented, overlooked groups and communities that have talent. They want to work. However, sometimes a lot of the barriers that organizations have, through their practice and some of their policies, prevents that talent from accessing that work. Sierra?
So within our research under GEM, with the talent pillar, we identified a number of barriers that leave out historically excluded community job seekers from the workforce, but specifically within advanced mobility. And we also acknowledge the fact that for individuals of color, specifically Black and Brown people, we are affected by the criminal justice system overwhelmingly. And so with that said, we wanted to address systemic racism, inequity, and opportunity, the absence of awareness in career sectors. And we want to focus on forming partnerships with for-profit and nonprofit organizations and other organizations that can support barrier removal and increase access into the workforce. And we also want to increase equitably informed hiring practices. I'm a little bit nervous. Thank you. Next slide. So with that partnership, Detroit Future City and Kelly Services will be partnering to do just that, increase awareness to advance mobility employment, to lower barriers to employment. And we will be doing so through working sessions over the course of a year. We have worked really hard over the last almost 2 years with identifying insights and gathering research that will support Marvin and his team and their ability to make, equity-informed hiring practices and decisions. Next slide.
So as I mentioned, the work I lead is our Equity at Work initiative. And as Sierra referenced, our primary focus with this work is really to identify within our client portfolios barriers within that talent experience, right? That end-to-end talent experience, and really consult with them and provide, as Sierra referenced, research-based, data-based, informed decisions. So when we think of some common barriers, primarily the Kelly 33 Fair Chance, Second Chance program is the one that rises to the top. A lot of our clients have either piloted or implemented some type of program, but we also look at additional barriers, and barriers are endless when we think about that end-to-end talent process. Things like, degree requirements for roles that don't need them, drug screens and THC on drug panels and that sort of thing. And we can go on and on and on. So really the goal with this work is to really create equitable access to employment and think about who are we excluding, right? When we have certain types of practices and policies in place, and how are we creating access, equitable access to those employment opportunities for individuals that really want to work and really deserve the opportunity to compete for those opportunities.
Next slide.
Next
please.
slide. So I'm not going to read this entire thing out, but a couple of things here I really want to tease out. You know, if there are employers on the call, or if you represent an employer, if you just work for an organization, the one thing I really want to highlight in this work is really for organizations to examine their processes, right? Take a look and ask the why. Why are we still, you know, why do we still have practices and some policies in place? Why do they exist? What are we trying to mitigate? What are we trying to overcome with some of these policies? And, you know, once you are able to really assess and take a look at those, really the next step is to look at your hiring programs and your recruiting programs. Are you being intentional, right, about reframing the way you look at talent? What does it mean in terms of the common and known and, you know, easy talent sources that we normally go to when we're looking at talent, right? So just reframing that idea of what the potential for talent could be, right? Who do we need to skill and upskill and provide opportunities to, and really taking that deep look, and like I said, being intentional about creating those pathways and removing those barriers to employment.
Also, this partnership focuses on, again, lifting up worker voice. The best way that we are understanding through our research to identify and remove barriers and increase awareness in growth sector occupations is for organizations to start to work together, for-profit, nonprofit, employers, community development organizations, and acknowledge and lift up the fact that, you know, new practices and new ways of doing things need to be implemented. And we will continue through this partnership to identify not only pain points, but solutions that can be, you know, implemented and even replicated with other partnerships that will allow for more historically excluded community job seekers into high pay and middle wage jobs, you know, better work environments. A lot of our workers who we interview through focus groups express a need for representation in the workforce. So that means that people who look like them are in, you know, leadership positions. They also express wanting, you know, training and jobs that will lead to higher level pay and promotions and things of that nature. So this partnership is focused on the two organizations supporting one another for a common goal of equity in hiring, equity in promoting, and long-term job placement. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Thank you to all of our case studies for all your presentations. I know that we kind of pushed everybody out fast, and thanks so much for all of that information in such a short amount of time. We appreciate all of you. And now we are going to close up, and we're going to have our colleague Sonia join us. Thank you so much, Sonia.
As you can see, there is passion and commitment in all of the folks you heard from today. They are innovators thinking deeply about how they can make a difference for Detroiters, how to bridge skill divides, and create pathways for those typically left behind. We ask all of you here today, what are you willing to do? Who will you work with? How will you leverage your resources? And how will you connect with those who are the hardest to reach? Well, you can start by connecting with the initiatives we've showcased today. You can also contact us to plug into our work or to think through ideas together. We are here now, and we are committed to staying the course with this work until Detroiters feel the difference. With that, we thank you for your participation and wish you a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.